Okay, welcome to part 2. We're going to continue with this little sci-fi cube thing for our intro to Painter. Alright, so Painter interface. We've got the file menu, file new. That's where you set up your project. Up here, pick your target shader that you want to work with. If you're going to be working in Unreal Engine, Unity, etc., um, which you can always target Unreal or Unity or dimension, etc. when you export your maps. So usually I use the PBR metallic roughness or the alpha test. So we're going to use, alpha blend. Sorry. We're going to use alpha blend. All right. So, and I'm using alpha blend because I'm going to have some opacity maps in here. So 4096, and you would have your low poly, open it, and and then we're gonna go here. I'm just gonna go ahead and bake these mesh maps again. So we've got that, and then bake mesh maps over here under texture set settings. And now I've got 4096. Make sure those are matching. That should be good. Grab my high poly, open that, make sure the high poly goes there. We've got an ID map on this one, so we're going to go to ID, make sure it's on material color and not vertex color, and that should do it. Bake out the mesh maps, and then we can continue rocking on from there. All right, almost done. Alrighty, so now we have all the high poly detail, but for only 728 faces instead of 236,000. So that is a good thing, and looks nice and clean. So we got a nice bake out of that one. All right. So Painter interface. We got file new, file open. That's if you save your project and then you want to open it again. And then here's all your recent files. You can open a sample, but we're not going to do that right now. Um, You can get more samples, close, save, all that fun stuff, right? All right. You can also export your mesh that's in here, and export textures is under here as well. And import resources, which import resources I'm going to talk about more, but it's right here. Um, all right. So you got the edit menu, Control Z is undo, and project configuration. Project configuration is really great if you end up with needing to change out the low poly real quick. Say you need to flip one of these UV shells, you can do that and then just bring it back in, but we'll talk about that in another video. And you've got settings. So most of these you're not really going to mess with, but those are there, so you can choose your background color. So usually a dark gray is good. And then it's got a nice little fade going on. So you can go from, there we go, and yeah, so maybe we'll do another video on all this, but this is the basic settings. All right, then you got mode. You can go to rendering. Okay, so you can see what your model is looking like, which we'll do a whole nother video on this. And painting, which is where we're at right now. And then you've got your different views. You got your history over here. Toolbars, you can turn them on and off. So, oh, if you lose a bunch of stuff, you can reset your UI. So, that's always a good thing. You can scale these windows. So, if you really need more space, so you can do that. You can also hide the UI, so you can just work with what's here. Say you're already painting or whatever, and you got your stuff set up, then you don't have to worry about the UI being um, in your way. And tab is the shortcut for getting rid of that. So, all right, and then we have the viewport. So M is display material. So that's what we're in right now. And then if you hit C, it's going to scroll you through your different maps that are up there, which right now we don't have a whole lot going on. So, and if you want to go back, you hit M. So if I had a material in here, and I wanted to look at the different channels, I got my base color, height, roughness, metallic, opacity, normal. So I can go through those, make sure things are looking right. And then you can check those out. And if anytime you want to go back to the main material, just hit M. So there you go. And then, so those are the shortcuts. There's your and there's the mesh maps themselves. So that's Shift B if you want to scroll through those. Like there's our RD map, and you can hit M to go back. And say your stuff gets zoomed out, you can hit F, and F will zoom in your view. So say you totally lose the guy, you can hit F and bring it back. So plugins, wouldn't really worry about those right now. And help, obviously. All right, so basic viewport navigation. So you got your, and then we'll go across the top here and down the side. So here's your 3D view, here's your 2D view. This is your unwrapped UVs over here, and here's the 3D model. Okay, so works the same as in Maya. Hold down Alt, left mouse button will rotate. Alt, right mouse button zooms in and out. And Alt middle will let you pan it around. Okay. Now, if you hold Shift and right mouse button, you can rotate the lighting environment in Substance so you can get a different look at how your materials are interacting with the light. So I can see how the light reacts with that chip paint, which is kind of cool. Then over here in the 2D view, same thing, hold down Alt. Alt middle is pan, Alt right is zoom in and out, and Alt left mouse button is rotate. So say you accidentally get it like this, hold down Alt and Shift and left mouse button, and it will snap it to a nice straight parallel view, okay? Want to rotate it 90 degrees, go that way, 90 degrees that way, 180, okay? So, yeah. And then, all right, so that's basic navigation. Now, if I add a layer in here, I can paint in the 3D layer over here on the model, okay? Or I can paint in the 2D view, okay? So let's back that out. So let's say I wanted to do something on this face. I can go over here, erase this one, go to my brush, and maybe I want to put a little smiley face on this guy. So there you go. Now you can paint in a regular layer. This is a fill layer, so um, you can't paint on fill layers. So if I add another fill layer here, I can't paint on a fill layer. So I'm going to erase this for right now. And I'm going to hit F so I can zoom everything out. And go back to this. Okay, so most of what is up here is also down here in your brush settings over here off to your right. Okay, so we've got size right here, size right there. So if I adjust it there, you can see that it's adjusting up top here too. You can also use the bracket keys just like in Photoshop to go up or down. Okay. If you hold down Control and right mouse button, that will also increase and decrease your brush size. So Control, right mouse button, move it left and right will increase and decrease your brush size. Up and down will increase or decrease the hardness. So that's Control, right mouse button, and down. Control, right mouse button, and move up. Control, right mouse button to the left, and Control, right mouse button to the right. Okay? So Control, left mouse button, left and right will adjust your flow, which is up there at the top. So Control, left mouse button, left and right. Okay. And then Control, left mouse button, up and down will actually rotate your brush shape. So if I switch out this alpha to something more directional, okay? And I hold down Control, left mouse button, up and down, I can rotate that, okay? So I can rotate it over here. And then Control middle mouse button does nothing. Now, I'm going to switch this to, I don't know, let's go with something like this. And maybe I'll change it to black. So let's say I want the arrows pointing the other way. I can snap this to an orthographic view by holding down Alt and Shift. So maybe I want some arrows going across this panel, but I want them going the other way. So I'm going to hold down Control, left mouse button, move it so they're pointing the other way. And then make sure my flow is turned up. Control right mouse button, and I'm going to make it smaller. Okay. And then if I adjust this spacing, and I just draw across, then I'm going to get spaced out brush strokes. Okay. But what if I want them running in a perfectly straight line? Well, let's check the spacing. Okay, cool. If I hold down Shift, I can make a straight line. Okay. So Shift will make a straight line. But if I want it to be perfectly straight going parallel, I hold down Control and Shift, and that's going to snap it so I can actually snap it so it's going straight. So now if I click, hold down Control and Shift, so now I have nice straight lines. All right. So you can adjust this up here. I'm going to switch my brush back to the standard brush. All right. So there's your brush tool. And then we got the eraser. So say I do something like this. Yay. Maybe I make a real mess. Okay. I can go to the eraser and I can erase the parts I don't want. And you can also go in here. Say I make a big dot here. And then go to my eraser. And maybe I want to use a different brush tip on the eraser so I can kind of break this up. So you can use a combination of your brush and the eraser to get different stuff going on, and I can always switch it back to the hard round eraser. So, or if I really don't like that layer, I can just delete it. Okay. So I'm going to make another layer. So I'm going to do that. Now you got your eraser here. Projection, which we don't have anything to project right now. That will be a whole nother video. And then we've got the polygon fill right here. So if I wanted to fill in parts of the model, I can only do white and black in a paint layer. Well, I can do a solid color, sorry. But that may not be what we want. So what I'm going to use this for is I'm actually going to delete that and use a fill layer. So let's say I go down here and I make a I'm just going to make a quick kind of metallic blue metal kind of thing going on here. So this is going to be really ugly, but hey, you'll get the point. So I'm just going to make something kind of crazy here with this fill material. All right, so maybe I don't want this on all of this, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add a mask. So now I can use this polygon fill to either fill in triangles on the model with that other material, okay? Or I can fill entire polygons, okay? So if you mess up, you can always switch this to black, okay? So let's say I wanted all of these areas of the box to be that material, which this is based on the low poly. So if you break up your low poly in a nice way, then using the polygon selection like that will work out really well. So another great one is the mesh fill, which will literally fill in the entire mesh. and my favorite, which is UV chunk. So if I take these out, and I go to UV chunk, I can just select certain UV shells and fill those. Okay, so that's handy. And then you can also switch this to um, varying levels of gray. So say you wanted um, this one to have a very light coating of that fill layer, and then maybe this one's got a little bit more, and that one's got a little bit more, a little bit more, and then you get to the end, and there you go. But maybe they all have varying levels of um, that fill layer. So it combines with the bottom layers. You can kind of see what's going on there. Um, so, and I can always go back to this fill layer and change things about it, which is one of the nice things about fill layers. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got I'm just going to add a regular layer again. So let's say I've got this mess. Now we're on to smudge. So just like in Photoshop, you can smudge some of your brush strokes. There's also the clone. Okay. And then we've also got the color picker. So I can pick this material, move it over. I can pick that. So kind of like the color picker in Photoshop. So we can always go back here and get rid of that if we don't like it. And then there's substance share, which has a bunch of different resources that you can download, brushes, filters, all sorts of fun stuff. And this one is substance source, which is also another resource to download things. Of course, it's taking a minute, so that's fun. Well, maybe we'll go back to that. Anyway, this one will also export out to Photoshop, so that can be useful in certain situations, but we're not doing that right now. And let's see, what else do we got? Okay, we've got symmetry here. This little red line is not the it's not actually in the in the texture, it's just showing you where that line is, because you can actually move that symmetry line. You can go along the Y. You can go along the Z. And you can also do radial symmetry, so we can show the plane here. Okay. You can show where it's actually intersecting the model or not. So you can show your cursor or not, the manipulator size, so all sorts of fun stuff. Radial symmetry can be kind of interesting. So you can do some cool stuff with the symmetry turned on. You can get lost playing with the symmetry. So oops, didn't want to fill layer. Add a regular layer. So it's a great way to do concentric circles. So symmetry is a fun feature. Okay. All right, so anytime you want to turn that off, you can turn that off right there. And then we've got the 3D and 2D view, so you can go with both. You can go 3D only, 2D only. You can swap between the two, so you can go F4 and swap between the two. F1 will give you both, F2 will give you 3D, F3 will give you 2D, and F4 will swap between the two. So that's that. And then we've got perspective or orthographic. So If I rotate this, now I've got a perfectly straight view, so I can either go this one is in perspective, so I can hit F5 or F6. F6 will give me orthographic. So orthographic is great for drawing like straight lines, anything that needs to be perfectly lined up. And then you can always go back to perspective with F5. So there's your orthographic, there's perspective. So yeah, changes things a little bit. So if your perspective looks a little weird, might be because you're in orthographic. So most of the time you're going to work in perspective, but then you can constrain your camera or do free rotation. Okay. So free rotation will kind of, yeah. Free rotation is kind of odd. So constrained will actually rotate it based on the object itself. And then we've got the render view here. So you can kick it into render mode. There we go. You can kick it into render mode from that little button up there too. Alright, so that's the basic toolbar and 2D, 3D view. Next part we'll go over the texture set list and this side of the screen and the shelf. See you next time.